Good morning. Our call to worship this morning are the words of A. Powell Davies, adapted from Lifting Our Voices. None of our world is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. We need the wider world of joy and wonder, of purpose and venture, of toil and tears. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners, forlornly wandering through the nighttime until we draw together and find meaning in our lives and in one another, dissolving our fears in each other's courage, making music together, and lighting torches to guide us through the dark. We belong together. Love is what we need, to love and to be loved. Let our hearts be open, and what we would receive from others, let us give. For what is given still remains to bless the giver when the gift is love.
I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one nearby. I light this chalice, a single flame which I hope kindles many hearts this morning. Let this flame unite us in virtual community and remind us of each other's presence as we worship from many singular homes. Let this flame inspire in us faith and courage to face these difficult times. Let this flame be our guide in making sense of a chaotic world, and let its light show us the way to beloved community, both near and far. Our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of our congregation, and service is our aim, to dwell together in peace and freedom, to seek the truth, and to help one another. These are our goals.
Thank you, Denise. Our joys and concerns this morning, Patty also Brooke. I talked to her the other day on the phone, and she's going to be a grandmother for the first time. Patty's son, Johnny Devine, and his wife, Olya, are expecting their first child in March. Patty and Dennis are hoping to travel to Boston for the blessed event at that time. Gaia Davies shares that she finished delivering the last of the Alliance Christmas gifts to the 13 children at Osceola Elementary School yesterday. She happened to be there just as a mother was loading gifts from another organization into her car. Gaia says the mom had a big, happy grin on her face and thought, and as though she couldn't wait until Christmas Day for her children were going to get some of the things they had asked for. And finally, Patty Tugas fell and broke her hip on Monday of this past week. She had hip surgery on Wednesday and is at Advent Health recovering. She's taking calls on her cell phone. I talked to her last night. Her voice sounds strong, but she's got a tough road ahead with rehab. Cards and notes of cheer can be sent to her home, and her address is in the directory. And now, for all the joys and concerns which remain silently on our hearts this morning, will you pray with me? Spirit of life and love, bless us this day with the understanding that joy and woe are woven fine, that whosoever brings us tears also brings us great joy, that the hours before the dawn are often the darkest. Spirit of life and love, bestow upon us the peace which passes our understanding, so that hope, faith, and love may fill our hearts and still our worrying minds. Spirit of life and love, in this difficult time, bid us to strive for our best selves each day. Let our striving be for justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations, Inspire us to create beloved community in ever-widening spheres. Spirit of life and love, we give thanks for this precious day and for all that is our life, for we know that our life is a gift, freely given, unbidden, and unearned. We give joyous praise for this, our one precious life. And now, Spirit of life, which we can all sing along if we have our audio muted. This morning I have a reading from Rebecca Parker, Winter Solstice. Perhaps for a moment the typewriters will stop clicking, the wheels will stop rolling, the computers desist from computing, and a hush will fall over the city. For an instant in the stillness, the chiming of the celestial spheres will be heard as Earth hangs poised in the crystalline darkness and then gracefully tilts. Let there be a season when holiness is heard and the splendor of living is revealed. Stunned to stillness by beauty, we remember who we are and why we are here. There are inexplicable mysteries. We are not alone. In the universe, there moves a wild one whose gestures alter Earth's axis toward love. In the immense darkness, everything spins with joy. The cosmos enfolds us. We are caught in a web of stars, cradled in a swaying embrace, rocked by the holy night, babes of the universe. Let this be the time we wake to life, like spring wakes in the moment of winter solstice. And now a solo by Ludi Goodson, To See the World, a short hymn in our Living Tradition hymnal. The words are by William Blake and the music by Edvard Grieg.
To see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in
Thank you, Ludi, for your gift of music. Everything about this season of darkness speaks to Advent, the liturgical act of waiting and anticipating the birth of Jesus, the mystical story retold for over 2 millennia now. The baby waits in the warm darkness of the womb while the mother waits in anticipation of what has been foretold. Pregnancy and birth signify human expectation, hope, renewal, and purpose. Birth softens the sting of mortality. It brings a sense of promise that life will go on, that with the first mewling cry comes the possibility of a Savior. Not to save us from some underworld damnation, but to save us from the hell we are well capable of creating for ourselves on this earth. Don't we all hope for that exemplar, that teacher, that hero to come into our era and hit the reset button on our fate as humans? What a mess we make of things sometimes. We need hope in the face of darkness, not only that of the winter season, but that of this pandemic, of social upheaval, of global warming, of overconsumption. We need hope, and this is why we as non-Christians hold fast to the Christmas traditions, because we need a story of expectation, renewal, and yes, even redemption. Think of redemption as that reset button, a do-over, a chance to make things right again with each other and with our Mother Earth. Sophia Lyons-Foss wrote, "Each night a child is born is a holy night." With this idea, she implies that each child born is a holy event because nearly every human child, every human being has the capacity to be wise, loving, and kind. Unitarian Universalists believe this capacity is innate. We call it the spark of the divine in each of us. But as we grow from child to adult, we cannot access that capacity for love and wisdom without wholeness, without being fully integrated within ourselves. The wholeness implicated by the word holy, H-O-L-Y. To be whole, W-H-O-L-E, we must prepare ourselves, and every Advent season gives us the opportunity to bring about our holiness within the framework of quiet anticipation. Let's look first at what we might be anticipating and preparing ourselves for in this season of darkness. In the Christmas story, it's the hope vested in the child Savior. For celebrants of winter solstice, it's the anticipation of the return of the sun. For the Jewish people, it's remembering the miracle of a 1 day's worth of lamp oil that lasted for 8. For Buddhists, it's honoring the birthday of the one who brought the light of profound wisdom and loving kindness into the world. In our personal lives, we might be anticipating with delight the arrival of a grandchild. Or we might be looking forward to the vaccine, which will dispel the oppression of COVID-19 and its toll on so many lives. We might be anticipating the results of a diagnostic test, which could change our lives. Or we could be waiting for a slow healing that will put us back on our feet again. Or it could be we are preparing ourselves for the first day of the rest of our lives. By this, I mean that whatever life brings us, the more wholeness we bring about in ourselves, the better equipped we are to handle the ups and downs with grace, peace, and love. That kind of wholeness will not only bring fullness to your own life, but it will flow to others with whom you share this world. Thus, you will become the one you've been waiting for in bringing about our beloved community, in bringing about more beloved community in our midst. The wholeness of which I speak depends on the connection we have with our deepest self, with that divine spark. Wholeness is created, and when we spend time in the quiet, that quiet, still space of the present moment, what Eckhart Tolle refers to as the I am. It's only in that space, that quiet space, that we can find the now, and we can find the ground of our being, the I am, our deepest self, the font of our being. In the space of now, in the stillness of the present moment, is the core of our being, not tied to experience or ego. Tolle tells us that dividing our lives into past, present, and future is illusory. Past and future live simply in our minds. Our experience and our ego contribute to our identity, but we are far more than the sum of just those two aspects of our being. And Tolle says that when you step into the now, you step out of the content of your mind. The incessant stream of thinking slows down, gaps arise in between thoughts, spaciousness, stillness. He continues, you begin to realize how much vaster and deeper you are than your thoughts. Now, I'll ask you to imagine yourself as an ocean. Much of your life is lived at the surface, with the ever-changing phenomenon of waves, tides, weather. The surface looks spacious, but it's noisy and busy and one-dimensional, and hides the vast depth and the calm that lie underneath. The deep calm place is your deepest, most authentic self. We all need to immerse ourselves in our depths at times because it is the only place we are going to find the spaciousness and the authenticity to discern with clarity our path, our truth, and our heart. If we allow only our life experiences, our egos, our social identities, our culture to define who we are and how to be in the world, we become like a dry leaf in the wind, tossed about without the power to determine our direction. We lack substance and resilience when we spend too much time on the surface of things. Michael Hyatt, an executive career coach, says he practices what he calls the discipline of stillness because, quote, I want to stay connected to my true self. I don't want to get confused thinking that I am the image I present to the world. They are related, of course, he says, but I want to live from the inside out. Living from the inside out is indeed the challenge, for if we can find the calm center of our being, no woe or worry, sorrow or pain can be our undoing. It says, you find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level. Taking that deep dive requires us to occasionally turn off the screens, the phones, the external demands for our attention, including our chattering minds. The deep dive requires us to just be in the moment. While our lives may appear to be a series of moments in which we live and have our being, this series of moments in which this or that occurs, there is really only the present moment in which we live and have our being. The now, as Tolle calls it, is life itself. All else is memory and anticipation, constructs of the mind. Now, I know it's a challenging concept. And of course, we must think about past and future. We must make our plans and have our goals and do our work. But as I said before, if we are only our plans, goals, and work, we become overly reactive to our life situations. What is more, we can become rudderless, which makes us easily manipulated in our consumerist culture. Tolle suggests that we learn what is primary. Is it the doing or the result of the doing that reflects who we are? Interestingly enough, this morning during discussion group on leadership, Sarah Angel gave an excellent example of the why of leadership. She cited Steve Jobs, who wasn't primarily interested in profit, but doing things as differently as he could. He operated primarily from his creativity, his creative self, his true self, and his desire to give the world a quality product. Sages through the ages know the value of slowing down and coming into the present moment to connect with that which is deep within us, whether that is the spark of the divine or our deepest, most authentic selves. Pico Iyer, a travel writer and journalist, talks about the art of stillness. He tells the story of meeting the musician and poet Leonard Cohen. Iyer reminds us that Cohen spent some years as a Buddhist monk. And Iyer thinks that people like Cohen who spend time in silence and stillness create for themselves an opportunity to slow down and step back from the messy tapestry of life. Stepping back in this way allows them to see and make meaning from the larger picture which emerges out of the myriad threads that close up make no sense, but from afar make a thing of beauty. Iyer says that this aspect of Cohen, he believes, is what made him so beloved and popular all over the world. We are attracted to the creativity of people like Cohen because they have this depth of character. We can be assured that the Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, all had finally developed senses in this way. And we can develop in ourselves a little of the quality of these sages. As usual, I preach to the choir most Sundays, and often I preach on what I need to hear. So many of you are wise, loving, and kind, and so many of you have a spiritual practice that gets you there. One of my biggest challenges as a minister is carving out contemplative time, creating space for stillness and just being. Every minister knows that If we shortchange ourselves on a spiritual practice, we are headed for burnout. Before I close, I'm going to close a little bit differently. I'm going to read you another reading. Today's subject of being still and quiet, or quiet anticipation, and preparing ourselves for wholeness. It's difficult to speak of in what's called day language, right? Speaking of it in in prose, and speaking of it with abstract language. But like the reading of Rebecca Parker, that is night language. And night language so eloquently expresses what I'm trying to convey. And so I want to give you close with this reading, Beneath the Hustle and Bustle by the Reverend Angela Herrera from Reaching for the Sun. Beneath the hustle and bustle, beneath the stream of thoughts that clamor and chatter over the landscape of our interior world, beneath our habits of momentum and stirring, there is a stillness, deep and peaceful, the place where creation begins. Who lives there? We know her by many names: truth, love, God, wisdom. We turn our hearts toward her face, toward the mystery, and bring our prayers of awe, of longing, of hope, of exhaustion. She holds us in our grief and anger, in our disappointment, our loneliness, and out of that, our rebirth. From her viewpoint, she sees children of the stillness, children of love. She sees our place in the order of things, joined together in the larger story, and she invites us again and again into living, invites us into loving, invites us into being loved. This season, let us prepare ourselves to be stunned to stillness by beauty and remember who we are and why we are here. As Rebecca Parker says, I hope that you may find this peace and stillness in the coming days of Advent, of winter solstice, of embracing the darkness and the stillness. May it be so. Our anthem today, a quartet, Somewhere in Your Silent Night, performed by Barbara Reed, Susan Garrison, Dan Kerr, and Bruce Nelson, accompanied by Janet Strumpus and recorded by Felix Fernandez.
There is no distance our loving heart won't go. From depths so low to joy so high. When your pain runs deep, our love runs deeper still. We have always loved you, friend, and we always will. Somewhere in your silent night, heaven hears the song your broken heart has cried. Hope is here, just lift your head, for love has come to find you. Somewhere in your silent night, lift your head, lift your heart. Our loving hearts will meet you where you are. We know your heart. We know you live, and you're the very reason that we came, the reason that we came. Somewhere in your silent night, heaven hears the song your broken heart has cried. Hope is here, just lift your head, for love has come to find you. Somewhere in your silent night, love will find you. Silent night, oh, love will find you. Love will find you. Love will find you. Love will find you. Love will find you.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Now we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you, Denise. Our benediction. These words can be found in the readings in our hymnal. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you. And now let us enjoy the musical version of these words, this blessing. Our service is concluded. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you, Denise, for being our service leader and for all of the wonderful gifts of music that we have in the people in our congregation.